Oh, hey there. How you doing? There's a few things I gotta get off my chest. One of those being the Indianapolis Colts are the prime definition of a downfall. And the reason why I say that, and I know you're wondering why I would say that, the reason why I say that is because they went from being one of the best teams in the league, not just the AFC or the NFC, the league. Number one offense. They didn't have their first punt until like 3-4 games into the season. They had the least amount of punts all season. Like, they went from putting up 30, 40 points a game. Like, they had one of the best offensive lines in the league. Daniel Jones playing like an MVP caliber player. Jonathan Taylor, the same thing. And they went from that to close to rock bottom. I wouldn't say rock bottom because they still have something to hang their hat on a little bit, given that they have one of the best running backs in the league. But for the most part, they made a lot of stuff has been out of their control, such as injuries. But for the most part, I do think they have made some bad decisions, given one of them being Phillip Rivers as their quarterback. Now, there was a lot of hype around him. I had a lot of, me personally, I had, some hope for him. I thought he was gonna come in and it'd be like a Joe Flacco situation where he kind of pick up, he kind of lift the team up a little bit. But after watching that Seattle game, I do not think he's the answer, given that he can't move at all. One of the advantages I thought he would have is him having an arm, but it seems like his arm is not there at all. Basically, he played like a 41-year-old quarterback. Like I said, I thought he would have had an arm. I thought they would have been able to push the ball down the field a little bit. But after seeing this specific play in particular in the Seattle game, I think it was like late in the third, early in the fourth. It was like a much needed first down for them to keep momentum. And it was 3rd and 7. They handed the ball off to Jonathan Taylor on 3rd and 7 when they needed a first down. Now that right there showed me everything. It basically told me everything. That this team is stuck in a bind. That this team is, they're stuck in their ways basically. Because earlier in the season they were doing stuff like that and it was working. And usually when you have so much success with something, given that this is the NFL, eventually there's going to become a point where you have to switch it up. And it seems like the Colts haven't, found ways to switch it up. Because now there's still, it's not like a 49er situation. Just look at the 49er situation, for example, where they have Christian McCaffrey and basically putting their whole offense through him. But the the difference between the 49ers situation and this situation is that the 49ers find creative ways to get him the ball. Screen passes, you know, tosses, jet tosses. Like, they find different creative ways, you know, instead of just running the ball up the middle. Now, occasionally they'll run the ball up the middle, but lining him up out wide, lining him up as a receiver. Now, Christian McCaffrey does have, you know, different talents than Jonathan Taylor. A lot of players you hear, uh, and former players you hear that Christian McCaffrey moves like a receiver. So it's not a surprise seeing that. But I do think the Colts should take some pages out of their book because they're not finding creative ways to get him the ball. They're running the ball with him up the middle and expecting him to create space out of nothing. Now running back is one of those few positions where you lean on the offensive line, where you have to depend on, a certain position. Now, wide receivers, they can depend on themselves. All they have to worry about is the ball getting to them. But as far as getting open or getting space, is basically on them. But for a position like running back, it's going to take the offensive line. It depends on the coverage that they're running. Because if they're stacking the box, there's no need to run, you know? Or if they're stacking the box, you know, find different ways to get him the ball outside of just running the ball up the middle. But the Colts haven't found ways to do that, and I do think it's hurting them. Like I said, besides the injuries, um, Phillip Rivers, and I think most of that is Phillip Rivers being their quarterback for this past week in Seattle. Because given that you don't have to worry about Phillip Rivers getting outside the pocket, improvising, making plays, it gives teams the green light to load the box, to, you know, basically get more downhill and stack the box and key in more on Jonathan Taylor. You know, there's no reason to get your eye off of Jonathan Taylor, because you know they're trying to get him the ball, and they're only giving him the ball one way. You know, um, and like I said, because Phillip Rivers is not mobile, down the line is definitely going to hurt them. And a team that was once a Super Bowl contender, or was looked at as a Super Bowl contender, you know, Phillip Rivers being their quarterback, I have them outside of the playoffs. Even if they do sneak into the playoffs, given on somebody else losing or whatnot, I don't see them making it past the wild card. I don't see them as a threat at all no more. You know, because once you stop Jonathan Taylor, you basically stop that team. Like I said, I had hope for Phillip Rivers, but seeing that they can't get the ball down the field, seeing that his arm is just not what it was in his playing career, it's, you know, I just don't see them going nowhere. Um, unless their defense can just take a major step and it takes some of the pressure off of their offense, which I don't see that happening, because all season that's what that's what that is what made the Colts who they are. Their offense, you know, them leading the league in offense and whatnot. And it's just, to now all of a sudden in the middle of the season to depend on your defense like that when they haven't had to depend on their defense as much. I just don't see it happening. Um, and I do think they just have to find more creative ways to get Jonathan Taylor the ball. Either that, or get players like Michael Pittman, get players like Josh Downs or Tyler Warren the ball even more. Uh, try to line them up in the backfield or something. Just try creative ways to get him the ball. Either that, or get rid of Phillip Rivers, get him, you know, the backup or something, and get a more mobile quarterback. I do think that's a major issue, especially given on what their offense likes to do. You know, because you could say Daniel Jones is not a mobile quarterback, but Daniel Jones, you know, especially earlier in the season, you know, from time to time you'll see him, you know, get out of the pocket for a rushing touchdown, or you'll see him get out the pocket and run, you know, to ease some of the pressure off of, you know, Jonathan Taylor, or to ease some of the pressure on the offense as a whole. But with Phillip Rivers, you don't have to worry about that at all. You know, like I said, he played like a 41-year-old quarterback. You saw that, you know, him slipping all over the field. As soon as somebody gets in his face, he has to go down, because he doesn't have the same movement to get out of pressure, break sacks. Um, and like I said, they don't have the ability to get the ball down the field. In today's offense, if you can't get the ball down the field, you're not going to make it nowhere at all, you know? And it's really kind of sad to see, given the expectations that they had, uh, and given that the downfall, or how quickly they, you know, went on the downfall. But hey, man, they're just another prime example of what could have been. But yeah, that's all I got for this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Do those 3 things for me. I really appreciate it. Wait, you said you ain't do it yet? Come on, bro. Take real quick, 5 seconds. Just like, comment, subscribe. Now, I'm not making you do it. I'm not forcing you to do it. If you want to do it, just help a brother out. All right, you did it? All right, appreciate it. Now, catch you on the next one.